What's going on, golf fans? It's your boy Gsluke here with our round 3 prop and betting stream for the St Jude Championship. Also going to go over some DP World Tour props and LIV Golf stuff for Saturday. All of that betting exposure for the golf side of things to hopefully have ourselves a moving day. But hopefully the Friday is treating everyone out there nicely, ready to get after it for golf over the weekend. Feel free to hit me up in the live chat with any specific questions or bets that you want me to deep dive, and with anything process-based as well. But outside of that, I just need you guys to smash a like button if you guys haven't already, and let's have ourselves a day for tomorrow. So the first thing we're going to go through would be the St. Jude Championship, which has not finished round 2 quite yet. They had a weather delay. They're going to be finishing that up in the morning, which will mean that we'll likely have a delay on getting that round 3 board. But because I want to make sure you guys have a game plan for tomorrow, we're not going to completely ignore it here. But when it comes to the exposure that we're taking for Saturday, at least as of right now, we're going to focus on the DP World Tour side of things in LIV Golf. So still plenty of exposure that you guys are going to be able to tail here. But for the PGA side, it's more so going to be giving you an idea of how to attack it tomorrow. So scoring average so far was minus 1.22, which is a 68.78. Birdie average was 4.22 per round, which is actually a little bit better than round 1. Bogey average also went down a little bit. I would say it was mostly pin location based. It seemed a little bit more straightforward in round number 2. Fairway average was also a little bit higher than the first day, and your green average actually went down compared to round 1. So that's what makes me think it was a little bit more pin location based. For example, hole number 5 was almost a quarter of a stroke easier alone because it was a much more accessible pin location. So in the morning, I think it's going to be dartboards. You're going to see some good scoring, which we could talk about a little bit because they have some live props up for round 2. That's Underdog that has that up. If Prize Picks, if anyone's going to post anything for round 3, it probably will be the Prize Picks side of things. But if you guys have any props or any specific leans that you like from the live board, feel free to let me know in the live chat. That's probably the main thing that I'm looking for at this point. Already 4 props that I've taken for those other events. But I need a pairing for Ben Griffin over on birdie. So we'll talk about why I like Ben for that at some point in this stream. But if you guys are watching this and you've already been looking at this board on Underdog, let me know what you're eyeing up for the next day. Let's go back to the weather. So weather for Saturday looks pretty similar to round 2. There's going to be a little bit of wind out there, but nothing that is too substantial. However, it's going to be much, much more receptive. So though usually we'd say, oh, it'll play similar from day to day, I actually think the scoring is going to get at least a half a stroke easier because of all the rain that they had come through. And I'm not quite sure it was enough to make it lift clean in place for tomorrow. They probably wish that they had it for tomorrow morning because it's going to be extremely damp out there. But even without lift clean in place, players are going to have an easier chance to hit it close to the hole and might even be able to spin the ball back on some of these firm green complexes. So when we take a look at the averages for round 3, not only will the softer conditions probably help players, but also moving day pins, which are usually a little bit easier than every other round, could make it play to like minus 1.5 or easier. So I would say the birdie average would probably go up at least 0.1 per round. The bogey average could stay about the same. So I'm not sure that category is going to move all that much. There'll probably still be a few tricky ones for players to attack, but your fairway average, that could go up after the rain. And then your green average, probably the biggest mover out of all of them, I would say. Strokes is also probably going to be a pretty substantial movement, but greens of regulation, I'd expect to be at least 11 per round. If not, closer to like 11.25 per round like we had for all of 2024. So that's what I'm expecting for tomorrow. I'm hoping we get some sort of props to go through. In fact, I'll double check on Prize Picks to see if maybe they surprised us with a few, and it looks like, look at that, just on time. They gave us a board to go through. So let's take a look at it. I was not expecting us to have a full Prize Picks board to go through, but sometimes you get surprised with some stuff. I will say that the live board wasn't my favorite, so maybe you guys have a hot take we can take with Ben Griffin. I'm okay adding a little early morning sweat to it. I guess let's talk through the Ben Griffin prop, and maybe you guys can hook me up with something that you guys like as well. But Ben Griffin has 5 holes to go. The hole that he's on right now, he's not going to finish on with a birdie, but he's got 16, which is playing to like a 70% birdie rate. So I feel pretty good about him taking care of one there. And then let's actually just check in on Ben Griffin. I can show you guys exactly where he's at right now. So through 12 holes, but he's not going to birdie 13 because he already hit his first putt. 16, he's got a birdie if he's going to cover that kind of line for us. but he's got this 1.13x multiplier. So, we're getting a pretty decent payout shift if we were to take that sort of thing. He's got 14 to attack, probably not a birdie hole. It's a long iron shot in, but 15 is very birdieable, especially when it's going to be dartboards for greens. 17 is a difficult hole, so maybe not the best opportunity there. But 18, if he hits the fairway, I could see him getting the job done. So it's not like it's something I feel too strongly about, I would say. But when I was going through this, I took a quick glance through some of the options that were available. That was one of the favorites that I had on there. And there were a few other people I feel better about getting to their projection. So like, for example, Cam Young getting to 5 birdies. He's got like 4 feet for a birdie when he first gets back. And then he also has that 16th hole to go out there and attack. But he's got this 0.63x multiplier. In fact, if he took those two together, it pays you a 1.83x, which I will just never take on a 2-leg parlay. That's literally getting less than plus 100 odds, which is just ridiculous when you're entering a 2-leg parlay of any sort of fashion. So I'd probably stay away from some of the heavier multipliers that you have on there, which is immediately why I was drawn to something that had this 1.13x. But maybe in chat, you guys have something that you thought was especially value in either direction, and I might consider adding it to the portfolio. But we're going to focus on some of the more concrete value that we can find on these other sites rather than doing that and forcing in degen exposure, right? If there's something that makes sense, then sure, we'll add it in. But if not, might not have to worry about it all that much. He said, tomorrow morning, you need Young to hit at least one more fairway and Mavin Keegan to miss one more green. Best of luck, man. I'm actually sweating those last two with you, but the first one, I hope it hits for you as well. PGA board is up on Prize Picks. That's pretty sweet. And yeah, it was unexpected. I didn't know if they were going to go with one, but always great to see that. He took Burns for the over on birdies, and he's got 3 with 17 and 18 left. Yeah, best of luck with that too, man. I hope that he hits for you on all those props. He said Harry Hall sold for you. He had double bogeys for days. Yeah, I didn't play him today, so I was able to avoid that myself, Jose, but hate to hear that for your exposure. He said Davis Riley under on birdies with Griffin on the over. So yeah, I don't know where he's at for birdie projection. I have to take a look at the board before I give you any sort of feedback on that. But yeah, I guess you heard that from Jonathan. That's what he thinks for tomorrow. Let's take a look at this board. So I think it's going to play significantly easier. It's a par 70. Let's remind ourselves of that. So I think it's going to play easier than the first few days, and they have players at 69 strokes. Then if we can find above average players at that projection, I'm going to be looking for their under. So just at a first glance, it doesn't look like the board is drastically off. In fact, I would say for the most part that a lot of these projections make sense. One that kind of immediately stood out to me is this Bud Cauley under at 69.5. I mean, he could have an average round and cover that for rounds 1 and 2, but if those softer conditions do make it a little bit more scoreable, even a little bit worse than an average round, might be able to cover that kind of line. So I know he's not like an elite tier player in this field, but that kind of stuck out. They don't have a birdie or better board up quite yet, so we're not going to have those projections to go through, but we'll have to see. And I just realized that guy in chat might have been talking about some of these live props. So let's see. You're looking at Riley under at birdies and then the Griffin over. So yeah, the Griffin over is the one we talked through. They had a Riley prop up, I'm guessing. So yeah, he's at 4.5. Let me see where he's at, because yeah, maybe that could be a look. He's got a decent amount of holes left. So I guess that would be the argument against Davis Riley. So let's see. So he's got 12 through 18 left. 16 is going to be almost like a shoe-in birdie for everyone in the field. I would be maybe against that one, right? If you were looking at that underside, just because with those dartboards for greens, all it takes is one good iron shot for him to go out there and make a birdie. So yeah, that's what I mean. Like these live props, I'm probably just going to stay away from, because like even that Ben Griffin one, he's got to fire a dart in a small sample size of like 3 holes. It's not guaranteed by any means. I mean, there's never guarantees when we're betting on golf, so it's kind of silly for us to even say that. But when they've only got realistically like 4 holes to try and attack, because we're going to give him 16, of course, but he's got to add one on top of that. It makes it a little bit sketchier. So let's see what we can do here on the regular Prize Pick side of things. So that Bud Cauley under was kind of calling my name, and I just realized they're probably not going to give us a full board to work with. So let's not just wait on them to post birdies or better. But if I was looking at this like a Tony Finau at 69, even a Ricky Fowler at 69, we're kind of catching my eye as well. I think that that's going to be at worst about the field average, if not maybe even about a half a stroke worse than what the field average could be for tomorrow. So let's look at the shots gained metrics on those two players. I know Bud Cauley is checking a lot of those boxes. He's towards the top end of the leaderboard, so you'd expect him to be playing well. Let's look at Ricky Fowler. Let's also look at Tony Finau. So let's start with Tony Finau. Over the first few days, we're going to look at all 36 holes. He's losing ball striking, which isn't the best to see. So maybe let's go to the Ricky Fowler side of things. And I zoomed in, so it's screwing all up with the formatting. But I wanted to make the shots gained metrics a little bit bigger for you guys. Ricky Fowler, to this point, though, he hasn't finished his round 2 yet, but he's gained 3.4 strokes ball striking, a lot more impressive than what Tony Finau's done. In the short game, it hasn't been horrendous. He is losing around the green, about a neutral with the putter, but it's not carrying him, even though he's in that top 20. So you know what? Like, between those two players, I would definitely lean towards the Ricky between the two. And I kind of wish we had the birdie or better board, because if we had anyone at 3.5 with a pulse, I would hammer that really over tomorrow. I think with his dartboard for greens, especially guys towards the middle to the bottom end of the pack, are going to be very aggressive. But yeah, like if Bridgman was 69.5, I would mix that in. Same with like a Andrew Novak. I don't think they did a terrible job with this pricing. In fact, like, Rose being 68.5 probably makes a lot of sense, but it shows us why there would be value on somebody like a Ricky Fowler at 69, who's playing more consistent golf and is also playing more reliable golf on a week like this. Like, Justin Rose has been all short game over the first few rounds. Ricky Fowler, as we've seen, has been much more the ball striking, carrying his game to this point. So we can go to those. Siwoo Kim kind of even stands out. Jordan Spieth, my guy, at 68.5. If I think it might play to a -1.5, that's 68.5 strokes. Just asking him to have a better than average day. And Jordan Spieth, I guess let's check that one out. He's also been really good ball striking so far and has lost just under 5 strokes between the short game categories. So, like, he's somebody that I'd probably be comfortable mixing in as well. So let's get Bud Cauley's ass out of there. We're just going to kick the bum out of the group. He's towards the top end of the leaderboard. If anyone's going to choke, it's going to be him. And we're going to take these two as the slip that we take for the live stream. And just to show you guys how ridiculous my limits are on here, let me take my logo off the top right so you guys can see the exact balance and the error code that's about to come up. So just 1 second while I do this. This is what happens when you beat them. And I've actually seen this go down to $2.50 before. So this isn't even as far as they'll take it, but I can't enter this for $6, right? At least on this account, historically, I can't enter it for that number. Let me zoom out so I can actually enter this. So let's try and do it for $6 and see what PrizePicks says. Your maximum lineups are $5 right now. This is what you can see there in the top right. At least if the logo's gone, yeah, you can see it there. If I try to enter it for $4, it's like, okay, let's enter it, I don't know, $3, right? Try and, okay, let's do a budget slip then. Oh, it lets me do it now. There you go. In the past, if I were to try and do that kind of slip, it would tell me that my minimum slip was $5. So what I wanted to show you guys there, and I guess they fixed it, thank God. I mean, I thought it was the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen, is it's one thing to set a limit on what you can enter for a slip. It's another thing to make the minimum the same as the max. Like, you're forcing everyone to enter the same amount of money on every single slip is, I think, a little bit of overkill when it comes to the limiting on these sports books. So obviously going to add some more exposure when I'm entering it for my real slip. I have to have other sorts of outs when it comes to these pick'em sites because of the kind of limits that they place on me. But these two props, ones that I'll be posting on my Patreon page a little bit later on. And yeah, was not expecting to see this board posted. I did think that they were probably going to hold off on that. So kudos to PrizePicks for getting ahead of that, actually giving us some selection to go through. I'm not going to have the sportsbook stuff like the 2 balls, the 3 balls. It'll be 3 balls for tomorrow quite yet. But tomorrow morning, when we do have those tee times posted, I will be going through all of that as well. Let's go to the other golf tournaments that we've got going on. So let's start with the LIV Golf stuff first. It played a little bit over par. It is a par 71, so that's 71.41 strokes. And it was pretty windy today. And for tomorrow, it also looks like it's going to be pretty windy. So let's go to Bolingbrook, Illinois, which is where this golf course is, sorted by the HRRR, and you can see close to the 13 to 14 mile an hour mark for most of those sustained winds, which is a little bit more substantial than what they had for Friday, but not by much, right? It's only like a maybe 2 to 4 mile an hour difference across the board. So these scoring averages at the bottom might get slightly harder. Maybe it plays like a half a stroke to 0.6 over par. Maybe the birdie average, I should say, goes down to like 2.85 per round. but nothing, at least in my opinion, that's going to change too much from day to day. So when we take a look at this board on Prize Picks, I think there's some value to be had. So let's go over here to the LIV Golf side of things and show you guys those two props. Joaquin Niemann under on strokes, and then also an over on Jon Rahm birdies. So let's go to the Jon Rahm birdie ones first, because I think that one's a little bit more straightforward. I think it's going to be like a 2.85 birdie average. He averages 0.9 birdies or better gained per round. He's number 2 on tour in the category. Go over here to birdies or better per round. He's number 2 behind Joaquin Niemann at 4.76 per round. The average on LIV Golf this year is 3.75 per round on the dot. So he actually averages 1.01 more per round than that field average. But I normalized it down a little bit. Honestly, there's not really a good rhyme and reason for that, other than to make sure that I'm getting a really good value on a lot of the props that I'm taking. I like to take a more conservative approach with my projections. If anything, like I err on that side. I've seen a lot of content creators that try to exaggerate some of the stuff they do. I try and do the exact opposite, right? If I'm going to project players and give them something for the next day, if anything, I try and take the most modest approach that I can. Even when you do that, you give them like 0.9 to maybe 1 birdie gain to the field, that is well over that 3.5 projection. That's closer to 3.85 to 3.9 birdies per round, something right around that range, which at that 3.5 mark would be valued towards the over. So that's why I took that one on Jon Rahm. Pretty much a no-brainer. You could also argue that taking the over on Joaquin Niemann birdies would make sense as well, because as you can see on that list, he's number 1. He averages an extra 0.21 birdies per round. So it's pretty significant. You could go that direction. I chose to take his strokes line, so he's got to shoot -2 to cover this. Just out of personal preference, he's a really good wind player. He has a low ball flight, which even though the winds will be kicking up a little bit, should not affect him as much. And he's the number 1 player on the LIV Tour this year. He's got 4 wins, maybe even 5 at this point. It's just ridiculous, the kind of track record that he has in LIV Golf, and he averages about 2.5 shots gained per round. So if I have the scoring average at about 0.5 over par, and he averages 2.5 strokes per round, then that has him at about that -2 projection. So that's why I took him for the under on that strokes rather than for the over on birdies, but either one would make sense. So 2 of the best players, if not the best 2 players that you have on the entire LIV Golf Tour, just to have, not amazing days, but a little bit better than average days is, I think, extremely reasonable for these level of players. So that's what I took for the LIV Golf slip. Then we're going to go through some Euro golf stuff too. So this is a golf course that is brutal. If you guys didn't know the golf course, it's the Nexo Scottish Open. It's an event that they just added to the DP World Tour. It played 2.7 over par the first few days. However, you do have 4 par 5s in play at that golf course. You also have a drivable par 4 in play. So round 1, I think the birdie average, I didn't actually calculate it that day, but I'm assuming it was about like 2.5 per round. Today, I did calculate it for round number 2. It was 2.61 per round, which makes sense. It is an extremely hard course, but with the 4 par 5s and that drivable par 4, you're still going to have some chances to attack. And that was before the cut line. And what I noticed about that DP World Tour field is you had a lot of local players that aren't even on the DP World Tour in the field. So now that you've got them out of there, even some amateurs that were really jacking up the averages, I think that's going to improve the scoring average. And let me see if I could find the weather. I was having a really hard time finding it on here before. I think this is like somewhat close to where it is. So let's see if we can bring up the weather. Is it going to zoom us in on the area? I think it's like somewhere around here. I was having trouble finding the exact spot for it. It's going to be a little bit windier for tomorrow. You can see for Saturday, look at that, 40 miles an hour of gusts. That's something that you can't completely scoff at. The DP World Tour site isn't calling for as much wind, but it's been that way for the first few days. Like this golf course has played 2.7 over par because of that wind. And the big difference, and I've got to find the DP World Tour forecast because it definitely looked different than what we had here, is closer to 70 degrees temperatures, which the first few days it was 40 degrees, even rainy. That on top of the wind made it play nearly impossible. If it's going to be windy, I don't think that's as much of an issue if it's going to be warmer and they're not going to be dealing with that rain during play. So I actually think that 2.61 average from round 2 could go up, not only because of the cut line, but also because of the scoring average being a little bit easier as well, or scoring conditions, I should say. So I took an over on Marcus Kinholt and then also an over on Jacob Skov-Olesen. If you take a look at their odds on DraftKings, Kinholt is -135 for his over. Olesen is minus 130 for his over. So they're not like drastic value in that direction, but the sportsbook lines are already favoring that. And then also you've got the moving day pins. That's something that we didn't talk about on that side of things, but just like the PGA Tour, where round 3 usually plays a little bit easier, it's the same thing on the DP World Tour. So it would not surprise me if the birdie average was closer to like 2.9 per round, which means that guys like Kinhole and Olesen here, to cover this 2.5 number, have to have average to, marginally ever so slightly better than average days to go over that sort of number. So I thought it was just going to be the 2 slips for these smaller events that we were going to go through, but we were able to add the PGA Tour slip on top of that, which was pretty clutch. But those are 3 pieces of exposure that I've already taken for round 3. Kind of a bummer that we're not going to have the sportsbook line stuff to go through, as tee times have to be set before they can give us the matchups, right? That's the main reasoning for that. These pick'em sites can give us some strokes and birdie props because, they'll just set the same tee time for everyone and then adjust it when they get them tomorrow morning. The sports books don't have that same kind of luxury. They just, with their systems they have in place, it'd be a little bit more difficult to have that same kind of flexibility, which is the beauty of having these pick'em sites and the sports books to go out there in place. So I'll see if there's any questions, maybe any of those live props that you guys thought were good that we can add. If not, we're going to hop on out of here. That'll be it for the round 3 stream. If you guys want to see every single piece of exposure that I'm entering, I'm sure at some point we'll get more props to enter for the PGA side on Prize Picks. I'll be adding those on my Patreon page, as well as anything that I'm adding for LIV Golf and DP World Tour for Saturday and for Sunday. So for, a link to join over there, check out the description to this live stream. It is the Patreon page, and the prop tier is how you can get access to all of that analysis. Not only every single slip as I enter it, but weather forecast for these events, also stat averages for every single event that I cover as well, to give you guys the research that you need for any given round. So make sure to check that out if you guys haven't already. And let me see if there's any bets that we need to deep dive. So we got, how about a Tony for the under 69? Yeah, so that was one I was kind of looking at as well. The shots gain metrics just had me favoring Ricky a little bit more, but I would not be against that one, especially if I'm right about the scoring getting a little bit easier. That would be clutch on that. He said, hey, can you take the Bradley over 68? Yeah, I don't think that's a terrible lean, just because, that's 0.5 strokes better than the field average, but I'm personally going to be siding towards positive stance plays a little bit more, but I don't think it's like an egregious take if that's going to be something you're playing. And you're looking at the Bryson for the over on birdies. That's what I was looking at, man. He's, if we go back to that birdie list, one of the best birdie makers. In fact, number 3 on the tour, about 0.4 birdies behind Jon Rahm. So I prefer these top 2 just because they've been a little bit better this year. But yeah, Bryson, he'd be a solid candidate for any sort of positive stance play. Alrighty, guys, that's all I've got for the live stream. Best of luck with everything that you guys are doing. I'll see you guys for the round 4 live streams tomorrow night.